Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be talking about something rather serious compared to what we normally talk about. With the Seekers table being the one that we're getting next week, I figured it was a good time to talk about I don't want to say this, but it is kind of a big deal right now, and it's been a big deal from the beginning of the campaign. The elephant in the room that is Abria Iyengar. Now, I am a big defender of Abria Iyengar, in my opinion. I'm sure there's probably bigger defenders out there. But there have been a lot of complaints and criticisms levied her way, and a bunch of other things that we will talk about in today's video. So I just really feel the need to talk about this as the table that she is on is coming up in the near future. So I feel like it's a good thing just to talk about things and truly have a discussion about all of this. And I'm going to talk about the criticisms that she's been levied her way, and I'm going to debate them in certain ways. There are some that aren't going to be debatable, but there are some that are debatable. So I really do want to talk about this, and for the most part, I want to keep it as positive as possible. There are going to be moments where that's not possible, but for the most part, I want to keep it positive, and I want there to be actual discussions happening. I don't want people to just be like, she sucks, or this is bad, or she should be off Critical Role, or anything like that. I want to see genuine discussions happening in this video, because that's the point of it. That's the point of every video I make. I want to have genuine discussions with people, not just this is a bad take, or this person sucks, or whatever. I need to, if we're going to have this conversation, we need to have it like adults, because I do feel like it's important to talk about. Before I get into what the current criticisms her way are, I want to talk about some prior ones. So I feel like a good portion of the fan base looks at Abria and just remembers her time as a DM on Critical Role and tends to forget her time as a player. So for me, when she was a DM in the original EXU, I thought she was fantastic. I loved everything she did in the original EXU. She has one of my favorite things that a DM has ever done for a live show or a recorded D&D game, which is the post-game zinger, where we get to see something where the players don't. I loved that idea, and I thought she did an excellent job of sort of showing us locations that we have seen in the past and reintroducing us to characters and stuff like that. I thought EXU was fantastic. And I personally really liked it. There was a bunch of people who didn't like it, and because they didn't change, didn't like the idea of somebody else DMing other than one of the core cast members, or specifically Matt, in a longer series game as opposed to some one shots where other people did it. So some people were just hesitant on that front. But I personally feel like the original EXU is fantastic. Do I think it's on par with Calamity? No, but I would put it on par with Divergence, and I would put it on par with Downfall. Maybe even I would have the original EXU above Downfall depending on the day, but for the most part I feel like the three of them are super close, and then Calamity is just that much better. But I feel like a lot of people still remember her time on EXU Kaimal and in episode 92 and 93 from Campaign 3, and a lot of the criticism that comes from comes towards her is because of those episodes. Is because of Kaimal and how abysmal Kaimal honestly was. I dislike Kaimal to the nth degree. I, however, like episode 92 and 93 outside of a single moment that she had where she changed a rule to basically fuck over an NPC for no reason, to fuck over Dorian for no reason. So that criticism's fair, but I do feel like a lot of people need to take a step back and be being a DM and being a player are two different things. And she needs to be given her fair, chance as a player as we move forward into Campaign 4. Because realistically, I think her time as a player on Critical Role, every time that she's been a player, has been fantastic and has been brilliant. I feel like her as Laren was amazing and super layered and a really fun and complex character that had a really interesting story and a fun motivation moving forward. Was it necessarily a good one? No, but that's what makes the character complex. She was a defender of Avalier, but she wasn't necessarily somebody who had the best interest in the entire world. It was more so she wanted to prove that her, along with the other mages alongside her, were potentially better than other people. And I like that, because she's not the only one in the Ring of Brass who thought that they were better. Paisha thought she was better. Xerxes thought he was better, right? They're not the only ones who thought that they were better than other people and who knew better, who should be a guiding light moving forward. Those three characters specifically are like that, and I loved those dynamics, and I loved everything about it. And Abria was a big part of that. And then on top of it, we look at campaign 3, where she plays Deanna, where she plays a brilliant support character for Chetney's backstory. And I love that. And everything that like that character did and everything like during that time where she was there was super entertaining and super fun. And she gave us another added layer to like the gods in campaign 3. She was at the time one of like 2 or 3 characters who actually had some form of relationship with a god, even though the gods were like one of the main points of campaign 3. So she was able to come in, support the main cast, and then add another layer to the story. So Abria as a player is totally different, in my opinion, to Abria as a DM. And for her to get the criticism that she gets just from being a player in a couple of episodes so far, she's got maybe a grand total of like 5-6 hours in campaign 4, and people are just throwing crap at her for no reason, in my opinion. Now, we will talk about these criticisms as we move forward, but I feel like we need to give her a fair shot as a player and not base our opinions on her as a DM first. And I feel like a lot of people are doing that. So now it's time to move on to the criticisms that she's been receiving for campaign 4. It's important to remember that these are subjective, in my opinion. One of them isn't. One of them is objective, and we will talk about that later. But I'm going to talk about the first 2 that I see a lot. That the first one is that she is loud and annoying. Those ones, in my opinion, are like the same one. So she's loud and annoying. And while it's hard to argue because she is literally louder than a lot of people at the table. My main thing for, the annoying thing and like loudness level, if you find that annoying, that's going to be different based on every person, right? So like somebody could be really loud and nobody care around them because that's just their personality, which is very much Abria. She's a loud person, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to be quiet. I actually love that Critical Role has a group of people who are all different. Some of them are quiet, some of them are like, talking with their body movements as well as being loud. Some people are just loud. Some people like, everyone's different at the table with how they communicate and how they speak and how they move around. And I love that everyone is different in that way. Sam, Whitney, Marisha, Abria, they're all people who talk a lot loudly, and some of them move with their hands. Louise is another person who doesn't necessarily talk loudly, but he moves his body a lot when he speaks and when he talks, and he's like able to, add more to what he's doing when he moves his body. He does move around a lot when he's talking. And I find it funny that, Abria, who's just loud, like some people could like look at what Louise does and be like, that's annoying. Why does he move around so much? Or why does Marisha constantly move all day long? And you could say that anyone's annoying or loud or whatever, but it's all based on your like personal opinion on what those things mean. So I don't think that's a fair criticism because everyone's going to be different. And personally, I really like that everyone has like their different styles of like the way they talk, the way they move, the way they communicate. I like that stuff a lot. So personally, for me, that's not a big deal. If that's a big deal for you, it's kind of understandable because yeah, she is loud. The issue that I have with this is I really hope you keep that same energy for everybody else who's loud. Sam, Whitney, Marisha. I really hope that when they are loud and doing stuff as well, that you have the same energy of, I really don't like the fact that they're being that loud and they're doing all that stuff and they're being super extra. I really hope you carry that same energy across everybody and you're not just aiming it at Abria, because that's just kind of bullshit if you are. So next we have the next one, which kind of like compounds the whole annoying thing, which is that she has main character syndrome. She constantly interrupts, she constantly interjects herself, she's constantly like butting into the story. And I have to just look back at campaigns 3 and EXU down Calamity when she was in those, and I compare it to what she's in now, where she's a main character of campaign 4. And I have to argue the fact that she doesn't have this main character syndrome, in my opinion, right? As Laren, she was perfectly like balanced between everybody. Everybody was equaled out. Everybody almost had, I'm pretty sure everyone almost had equal like screen time. In fact, Laren might actually have less than other people, but like when her moments do come up, they're really important. So everyone in Calamity was equals in my eyes. I don't feel like anybody, with the exception of maybe like Nidus, was like the only, I think that's his name, I forget if that's how you pronounce it or not. I feel like he's the only one who might have been like less important than the others, and that's just my opinion. I don't know if like I'm misremembering anything, but I feel like everybody else had like a really big moment, and maybe he did too, but I just can't quite recall it, which is, I think, a good sign that everybody else has like a really big moment. Only one person felt like they went by the wayside. But then you look at Deanna in campaign 4, and I personally feel like she played an amazing support character for another main character in Chetney. She really leveled up his backstory. She brought out more of who he was in the past, and she was able to bring out more of that person from the past to the current Chetney, and he was able to evolve because of it. I loved that, and she was also able to add to Fern's story as well. I loved everything that Deanna did in the story because it was a lot of fun. She was able to like give them good lore. She was able to help them out with like figuring things out for FCG because the two of like her and Frida ended up going into Aor a lot. She was able to just add a ton to the world. And I already described how she was able to add to like the gods subplot. So realistically, she was a supporting character as her character in Deanna, and she was one of the many main characters in Calamity. And I really don't think the main character syndrome ever came up during those points. So why exactly do people think that she is a main character hog or like a screen hog, or she has this main character syndrome in campaign 4? Well, realistically, a lot of people say that she interjects a lot into things that she doesn't need to. Like when people are talking, she tries to talk over them, and she tries to, speak, and she tries to add herself to the conversation. And I feel like a lot of people are forgetting the word add, because I really think, because I went back and watched a lot of episode 1, 2, and 3, and 4, to, prep for this video. And a lot of the times where she adds herself to a conversation, she does just that. She adds to the conversation. The moments where people were being introduced and she would like speak up and be like, "Oh, the Jasmine in the room." Like she was, when she first arrived, she like grew Jasmine at like the entrance door for Hal's place, right? And as each character would roll in, she would describe how the Jasmine would change or how it would react and all this sort of stuff. And it really added to the entrance of Julian. Right? She was able to build to a moment where the Jasmine died and turned into like bramble thorns and shit like that, because she was able to like allowed to add things in that moment, where she was allowed to add her like little like, oh, this is what the Jasmine does when this person walks in. It really made Julian feel that much more of like a bastard. Right? The minute he showed up, we knew something was wrong. Everybody else got the nice smelling of Jasmine, with the exception of maybe Tyranny and Wick. But for the most part, her doing that really added to the scene and really added to everyone's introductions. Like, this person's good. This person's good. Oh, we don't like this person. I loved that she was able to add to those moments for those characters. And I personally feel like every time something like that's happened, like a couple times things like that have happened. Now, there were a few times where she's like maybe a bit overzealous with how much she's like, adding to things. Like Tyranny went into the kitchen and people got really upset that instead of letting Tyranny do whatever she wanted in the kitchen, Taisha, someone who doesn't live in the house, went over and was like, "Get the hell out of our kitchen." But I feel like that was before we understood the relationship that her and Hal truly had. It's not like they're not like, they're former lovers and all that sort of stuff, but that type of relationship seems to be different with that like culture. So it's something that we have to sort of accept, like that's how they operate. This is her house. She does belong there if she wants to. If she chose to stay there at that house, that's her kitchen. So I feel like a lot of people like either miss the context of some things or just feel like she's talking too much or whatever. I personally disagree. I really like that she was able to add so much to everyone's character introductions because of a bit of like Jasmine that she would talk about, and because she would like interject with like Tyranny. There's actually a good moment that formed from that where the two of them were getting drunk together and sharing personal things about each other, and we got to learn stuff about them. I thought that was brilliant. Anytime in the earlier episodes where someone said that she interjected with something, like a couple minutes later there would be a payoff. And I really feel like a lot of people are over, like, I don't know how to say this right, but like they're over exaggerating how much that did. They're over exaggerating how often she did it, and there was a payoff to it when she did do it. So I personally feel like this criticism, while I could see it if it continued to happen, which it didn't, I feel like up to this point she hasn't really done anything like super bad in cutting people off. She's actually let a lot of people have their moments, and when she feels like she can add to it, keep in mind, I said add to it. She is constantly adding to things, and I feel like it's a really good thing that she does. Go back to any campaign. You'll see moments where Liam allows people to say something, and then he'll add to it. Or you'll see the same thing with Marisha or Talzin. They do that constantly for each other in these games, and it would be silly for someone to be like, I can add to this, but I'm not going to. Because why not? Why shouldn't they add to this moment? I feel like this is just being blown out of proportion, and I realistically don't know why. I think it just is in like combination with the whole she's loud thing, and if that's the case, like the two things combo together in a weird way that make people not like super happy about the way she does it. Like if she was a little bit quieter with it and maybe she wasn't like yelling about it. Like again, I disagree with the whole yelling thing, but I personally feel like, you know, people wouldn't be so upset if she was more like Liam, where she was a lot more calm when she did it and she wasn't as loud. So who knows? But I personally like the way she's able to add to things, much like her post-game zingers, right? I was talking about that earlier. I feel like she's able to add things in a unique way that a lot of other people don't. And I just feel like a lot of it's being blown out of proportion. So those two things were like the subjective things, right? The criticisms that get levied toward her because like someone has a different opinion than her, or other people who are on the internet space or in the community, whatever. Like those are the subjective ones. There is something that people have been saying that is bullshit and pisses me off to no fucking end. And it really shows to me that a lot of people don't know what they're talking about when they bring this up. And that is the thumbnail to this video. I don't know why this narrative exists where people are comparing Abria Iyengar to Orion Akaba, and hopefully I said his name right. Frankly, I don't give a shit. Because realistically, why do we care about getting this guy's name right? But anyway, I fucking hate this comparison. So many times in recent weeks since campaign 4 started, and frankly since fucking before that, have people been comparing the two of them, which is fucking bullshit on so many different levels. And I'm gonna get mad, so if you don't want someone swearing a lot, I don't fucking care, because I'm just gonna swear a lot, because this is nonsense in my opinion. This comparison is so bad. It doesn't make any sense to me. So a lot of people compare the two, saying she's the new Orion Akaba, right? I've seen that comment on my channel. I've seen that comment on like Twitch chats, on YouTube chats. I've seen it on YouTube comments, on Shorts comments. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen Shorts talk about this, and I think it's nonsense. And it's a real like display of people not knowing what the hell they're talking about when it comes to this sort of stuff. I've already laid out to you how I don't think Abria has really been this big problem that a lot of people have made her out to be. And I'm going to be real with you right now. Orion Akaba, however the hell you want to say his name, was a fucking problem player. From top to bottom, he genuinely had main character syndrome. He cheated. He metagamed. He fucking lied constantly. He tried to steal items from other players when they weren't at the table. He made issues with the DM on multiple occasions over how he thinks characters should interact with each other. He's a fucking dick constantly, 24/7, making inappropriate jokes all the time. The biggest, most famous one was the half chub one, which I've put on this channel before. I feel like people who make this comment genuinely don't know how much of a problem he fucking was. There's a reason he got kicked off the show. He got kicked off the show not because he's loud or because he has main character syndrome. It's because he's a dick. And he deserved to get kicked off the show because he's a cheater, he's a liar, he's a metagamer, he was terrible to fans, and it's just inappropriate jokes. Like, again, these are things that Abria has never done. To my knowledge, I don't see anyone look at Abria's dice when they roll unless it's like, oh, we have to watch to see if it lands on the thing that we needed to succeed. They would watch Orion roll because he'd fucking cheat. There's video evidence of him moving the dice after rolling. Okay, let's take this one step at a time here, because I really do need to take it one step at a time. Let's talk about the main character syndrome first, because it's important to talk about. He had such main character syndrome that whenever someone else would succeed, he would get upset by it, right? There was a very clear moment where he'd be upset about someone else's succeeding was he used one of his abilities or a spell or something. I forget exactly the exact context, but Laura, Vex, rolled like a natural 20 to do something, and he took that away. he did something. I forget if it was like he pointed out like, oh, the wrong roll or whatever, or he like used one of his abilities. But he basically was like, no, I do this, and she has to re-roll that. And she then rolled a 19, but like it was like one worse than what it was before, but it was no longer a natural 20. He took away her success because he didn't want her to succeed. He wanted to be the one to succeed. And whenever like there was a moment where, and it's infamous in my opinion, where Percy was like trying to make some sort of like upgrade to a weapon, or he was trying to make a weapon. So, you know, he went out shopping to buy all these things. Orion decided that it would be a good idea for him to steal Percy's shtick, which a lot of people really liked about him. Like, oh, you know, like Percy's the tinkerer. He's the what is it? The terrible tinkerer of Teldore. And so he's like, all he does is like make these cool contraptions and shit like that. Well, apparently he didn't like that people really liked that idea about Percy. So he's like, I'm Tiberius, the terrible tinkerer of Teldore. So he went out to try to buy things, and he wasted like damn near an hour trying to buy something so he could make like some sort of fucking stupid ass death ray thing. And it got to the point where Travis was like, and we're done now. Like Travis, the guy who would never interrupt other players and tell them we need to move on, he said, you're done. He literally says in the clip, like, and we're moving on from your bullshit now. You didn't get it. Time to move on. And then Tiberius kept, or Orion kept fucking saying it. Like, he's like, no, I want to try it again. And Travis is like, no, we're moving on. You've already wasted like 50 minutes of today's episode because of this nonsense. So those are only a few examples of him trying to be like the main character. I guess another good one would be like Tiberius's turn, where he like, you know, when they were in the Underdark and the others were fighting this fucking like mind flare, not a mind flare. It wasn't mind flares down there, but they were fighting this beholder. I forget the exact circumstances again, because again I try to forget these early episodes because they're painful. But they're fighting the mind flayer with the horn, and there's like an elder brain nearby, and he flies away because he's like, I'm gonna go convince these people to join me. So he fucks off, does a bunch of nonsense over in the corner, and then comes back. I'm going to talk about that more in a bit later, but there was a moment where he's like, no, this plan's stupid. I'm going to do my own plan. So he fucked off. Again, another sign of him being like, I disagree with everybody else in the party, and I'm the main character, so my idea is going to work. And then his idea didn't work. So again, time and time again, he has done stupid main character nonsense. And I can already, those are 3 moments off the top of my head that are more main character syndrome than anything Abria's ever done. So that nonsense can get thrown the fuck out the window. Then we move on to I think I want to talk about like the toxic bullshit before I talk about anything else, which is like the toxic player mentality of like, this item would work better for me on my character than it would on Scanlan. So when Sam's not on the table, like he's not at the table, he's sick that day or he's late, whatever. When he's not there, he tries to convince Matt, who's like, you know, being Scanlan for a bit. He tries to convince him that the item should belong to him. He tries to convince Matt that who's currently like DMing as a player, that the player item should go to him. And then Matt's like, no. Like in other words, Matt was trying to like deflect and move it away, being like, wait for Sam to get here. And Orion just kept trying. He just kept trying to take it over and over again until everyone, well, not everyone, until Matt was like, no, just wait. Right? He basically had to like outwardly, out of game, be like, wait for him to come back. And then he would eventually convince Sam that it was a good idea for him to have the item. But that's beside the point. If you're going to try to take an item from somebody, you should have that conversation to the player, not a DM to try to undermine it and steal the item. And that's what he was fucking doing. He was trying to steal the item. So that was great. And then on top of that, there's the obvious half chub where it was a very inappropriate joke. A lot of people think it's inappropriate because it was to a married woman. That's not why it was inappropriate. It was inappropriate because the joke was so clearly unwanted. Like it was so out of left field. It was so wrong and so unnecessary. That's the main thing. It's unnecessary, right? And a lot of people are going to point out the fact that like Marisha later on in campaign 3, 8 fucking years later, by the way, where these people have all gotten a lot closer and they're like family. Beforehand, they were just good friends. Now they're a family and working together in a business. Where Laudna would make Pate make a joke about having a half chub about Imogen. This made more sense because those characters were like in a romance, and it was just a funny way for them to convey like their feelings towards each other. So that's whatever. The half chub joke that Tiberius made, not even Tiberius, it was Orion saying, by the way, what Vex just did was hot to Tiberius, so he has a half chub. He said that above table. Like, what's the fucking point? And that was the moment, by the way. I feel like a lot of people are able to like read Travis's face. That was the moment where Travis was done. That was when Travis is like, oh, I might kill you in a minute. And it's clear on his face. I've never seen Travis genuinely like that pissed off before. And every time Travis gets genuinely pissed off, and I mean genuinely pissed off, it's toward Orion. It's a weird concept. I'm sure it has nothing to do with Orion being a problem. A problem that has never been risen up before since, or never again. These people don't have problems with each other at the table. The only other like major problem that has ever happened at the table was the whole Ashton Fire Shard thing, and that's because everybody misinterpreted what everyone wanted to do at the table at that point in time, so they needed to have a conversation about it afterwards. That was the only other fucking time in 10 years did a player do something that a lot of people were like, we need to talk about this. And that's the only other time that like I realistically think that's ever happened, other than back in the early campaign with Orion Akba, where he's a pain in the ass. So, toxic problem player. I feel like I might be missing something that I wanted to talk about when it came to him being a toxic player. The fucking cheating and metagaming. Yes, that's right. Like I said before, he rolls dice and he would fudge them to the point where both Marisha and Sam would have to watch him constantly. They would have to watch him constantly, like, so he wouldn't roll his dice again with his hand. He would roll and then slide his hand across it so it would move again. There's probably a clip or two on the internet of him doing that, just like very same thing that I just described to you, and it's not hard to find. I'm sure it's not hard to find. I'm not finding clips for this video because realistically, like, I just want to talk. So cheating, I've never seen Abria cheat. In what world has Abria cheated as a player? And some people are going to point out, well, she changed the rules for Chromatic Orb in episode 93. That was as a DM, not a player. So, whatever. That's different to me. She's never fucking looked at a dice roll and cheated that dice roll. Never. As far as metagame goes, it's a little hard for a DM not to know what kind of thing you're fighting, but I still think she's never metagamed as far as I'm aware. Because I feel like there's been a couple of times where they've encountered something where she probably could have known like a weakness or maybe what kind of saves it does, so she could have prepared a spell or whatever. She never did this. As far as I'm aware, she never did something that would undermine a DM's combat encounter. Orion Akba would look up monsters to fight constantly. There was a point in time where they had a fight with something, and after the fight was over, he made a point to say he didn't look this one up this time. Are you fucking kidding me? You're looking up the boss monster of this encounter? Like, what is your problem, dude? There's lots. But is this type of shit has never fucking happened as far as I'm aware with Abria on Critical Role. I don't know what her time in D20 is like, so I couldn't tell you. But I have never seen Abria do this. And this is what is so fucking annoying about this comparison to me. These things that we can clearly point to with Orion Akba is not a fucking thing that we can clearly point to with Abria. It's just not. It is not a thing that she has ever done as far as I'm aware. So realistically, whatever. I don't even want to fucking talk about like the shitty crap that he does or did outside of Critical Role. The main one was someone made a Tiberius shirt and he basically told him to not make the shirt because it's his copyright infringement. What kind of asshole gets something made by a fan and then he's like, fucking get rid of that? What kind of dude is that? Like, that's just bullshit. That's just... Okay. My point is, to my knowledge, and from my research, Abria has never done something like that to a fan, where someone has tried to make something for her, and she basically threw it back at them and said, make sure you never make one of these again, because that's my original IP. That has never happened, to my knowledge, with Abria. And again, I really am sick of the idea that these two people can be compared, because I just spent the last fucking 13 minutes talking about all the terrible shit that a problem player who got removed from Critical Role did. And people try to compare him to Abria Iyengar. That is bullshit, unnecessary, and totally wrong. I cannot stand this comparison. Anytime I see it, I genuinely think about blocking that person in my comment section because I think it's wrong. Now, I feel like a lot of people are just uneducated on what Orion Akba was like. So I feel like I have to give them a pass, which is why they're not blocked. But I realistically need people to know they're nothing alike. This conversation is bullshit. They're nothing alike. She is an infinitely better player. And she's an infinitely better person. I would love to have her at my table. I would never bring Orion Akaba to my fucking table. Never in a million goddamn years. He's a cheat. He's a liar. He's a fucking metagamer. Oh, I didn't even bring up the fact that, like, during Tiberius's turn, right? So there was a combat that happened, like the beginning of, like, they did a combat in one episode, and then the next episode was another combat. In between those two episodes, somehow, even though there was no rest, short, long, or anything, Tiberius gained all of his fucking sorcery points back. He used a bunch of his meta magic in the episode prior, and then used just as much meta magic in the episode afterwards, even though it would have doubled the amount of fucking sorcery points he would have had. That's the type of things that he would do. And people compare him to Abria. So I despise that comparison to no end. I think it's nonsense. It's bullshit. Everything else up to this point is subjective. This is a fucking objective fact. The two of them are not the same. Stop comparing them. Okay. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about probably the biggest elephant in the room about all of this, and that is the probability that a lot of people who just hate on her, not a lot, but a portion of the people who hate on Abria are either racist or sexist or both. This is a real conversation to be had. I really believe that not all of the people who make complaints about her are sexist, racist, or both. I like to believe, and I have hope in the world, the internet, whatever you want to say, that this isn't the case. I really believe that a lot of people just want to, like, give their opinions about a person and be like, hey, I'm not a fan, or whatever. It has nothing to do with their color, their gender, whatever. There are people who genuinely attack her for her race, for her color, and that's nonsense. That's bullshit. It's 2026. Grow up. Fuck off. Why do you even watch Critical Role? If you are someone who doesn't like her for her race or her gender, why are you here? Like, that's a genuine question I have. Why? Are you just here to spread hate, which is probably the answer? Are you just here to piss people off and trigger them, which is probably the answer? Are you just an asshole, which is probably the answer? Like, I genuinely don't understand this hatred, right? I just don't get it. I don't get hating somebody for being a different skin color than you. I don't understand the idea of hating someone for having different parts than you. It makes no sense to me to be this type of person, to be this type of way. And if you're someone who's like some sort of fucking weird old head who's like, D&D's for me and the rest of my boys in the basement, not for the girls or not for any other person, fuck off. Genuinely, go take all of your D&D books that you've ever owned, all of them, and I need you to either donate them somewhere else, sell them, or throw them the fuck away, because you don't deserve to fucking have them if you're going to be someone who's just going to hate people, because that is not what the fucking D&D community is about. And I despise the idea that there is a portion of the internet that hate people simply because of the way they look, their gender, their race, whatever the fuck. You don't belong here if you hate people for no fucking reason. Simple as that. So with all of this being said, I really hope that as we move into the Seeker's Table, that we give Abria a second chance. Those of you who have been, not a big fan of her stuff going into this point, I really would like you to give her another chance, because I think she's an excellent player. She's an excellent role player. She's an amazing human being. So realistically, We need to give her that chance to be allowed to show her stuff. We need to see what she's got. We need to truly see her at the table for more than an hour at a time before we get upset about her doing stuff, right? We need to give her a chance. That's all anyone ever deserves in life, and we need to give her a chance to shine. We've given the main cast of Critical Role 10 years to shine. I want Abria to have that opportunity, to be able to shine and not have anyone stand in her way. So please, as we move into episode 12 of Campaign 4, give her a chance. And with that all being said, I think that's probably a good place to end it. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, anyway, I will see you guys on Friday for the recap of episode 12 of Campaign 4. And until then, peace. And one last thing before I wrap up the video today, I want to thank my channel members. This month we have 2, one in the bandit category, and we have Sasuke versus Ninetales 33. Thank you very much for being a bandit. And in the rogue category, we have Trentley's Tabletop as normal. Trent is always here, being my #1 supporter. So thank you very much, Trent. And thank you everybody else. Become a member today and you'll get videos early, and maybe in the future, some exclusive content. Mostly stuff that has something to do with me personally. So if you're interested in that, that might be coming down the pipeline. So we shall see in the future, right? Anyway, become a member today. Get some videos early. Thank you very much. Peace.